Yeah, I mean, we were even planning after Small Town Crime. We're like, okay, we probably have another movie or two to get to Fatman, just because of the size of it. But I mean, luckily the reps that we had were like, they looked at our material and they were like, hey, this one is so unique. It's so crazy. It's so you guys. Like, we think this is the one you should do next. And let's just go see if we can. Let's go see, who do you guys want in this? Like, let's go see if we can use Small Town Crime to show them in this script, and see if you can snag somebody. See if you can snag who you want. And that brings us right to Fatman, because Eshom and I were at a screening of Hacksaw Ridge, and Mel comes out with his giant beard, and he's on the award circuit, so he's doing all the Q&As for Best Director and Best Film, and he was like bent over, like exhausted, but like still passion and fire in the eyes. We were just like, he had that giant beard, and we were just completely smitten with him. It just looked like a guy that was really carrying a lot on his shoulders, but still had a lot of passion, and was exhausted, but he needed some help, or he needed a break, or he needed a whatever. It just felt like we were envisioning this character on him. We were just like, this is the guy. Oh my God. Just watching him talk to the crowd. We were like, this is him. It's gotta be him. And so we went out to him.
Yeah. Were you able to connect with him there, or did you have to go through his reps and do all that kind of stuff?
No, it was a process. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I'm fascinated with it.
We had to definitely formally submit through his representation. We kind of we're stuck on him for about a year before we got to actually, before the engine started turning and all that. And then I remember we had sent it off. We'd written him a letter, complimenting how great he looked in a beard, and amongst other things. And then we just waited, right? And we're twiddling our thumbs. And it'd been a couple weeks, and it'd gone through CAA, and we're like, oh man, like this is the blow off. This is we're getting ghosted, and home writing, because it's like on to the next, right? So you're sitting there, you're writing, you're thinking about new projects, you're thinking about who's the next in the queue, and Ian gets an email.
Yeah, and it said, hey, I love the script. It's really funny. Let's sit down for a chin wag. And we were like, okay, what's a chin wag, first off. But we were getting a lot of emails. We were getting a lot of emails from producers and financiers and people that were reading the script before we had cast, and we're just like, hey, this is really interesting. I watched your movie. I read the script. Like, come in, let's talk about it. Who do you guys want to play? Who do you guys want to cast in this? Like, we're interested. And it would just be a general meeting to talk about possibilities and would they back some offers to actors and those types of things. And we'd probably done about half a dozen of those meetings at that point. And, they were still kind of pouring in. And we were like, okay, well, who is this? Is this another financier, that's like, hey, I'm interested in sitting down with you to talk about possibilities. And so I just wrote him back. I was like, oh, thank you so much. That's awesome. Glad you responded to the script. We'd love to chat with you. Who is this?
and it's not like the email was like brave dude 25. You know what I'm saying?
And there was no sign off. It didn't have a name at the end of it. The email address is completely, seemingly random. There's no giveaway in the email address. So I was like, okay, well, who is this guy? And he writes me back, within an hour or so. And he's like, hey, sorry, I forget to sign off sometimes. This is Mel. And we were just like, holy I think we hugged.
We definitely hugged.
And I think we just kept wandering around the house for a couple of hours saying, he likes it. I mean, he says it's funny. He said he thought it was funny. He must like it, right? And then his reps get in touch with our reps, and they were like, hey, go sit down for an hour at a cafe in Malibu and talk to him, and just you see if you guys gel on your idea for what this movie's going to be. And of course, we're nervous. We're big fans of his. So we sit down with him, and 3 hours later, we emerged from this diner, hugging and laughing, and just, man, he really got it. He really got the script. He really got us. It was really cool to hear him at one point say, and this is what sealed it for us. We were like, how much you're gonna have to explain to your actor or try to, to figure out. He got it instinctively, immediately. He was like. And he told us, he said, you know what it is? It's that scene where I'm looking out at the elves He's like, and I'm trying to tell them that this is like that we got this military contract we have to do. And he's like, and I just feel like I should be like, I'm about ready to cry. Like, this is the worst day of my life. This is terrible. I can't believe I have to tell them this. I feel like I betrayed them. I'm going to cry. I'm going to weep. And like, I'm welling up. We're like, yes, that's it. That's it.
That scene is shockingly powerful. Like,
it really is.
That moment in that film, I feel like there are a lot of reasons to root for his version of Kris Kringle, and there's a lot of reasons to like the character and to feel good about him as a person. But like, to see him actually care so much, and to say to number 7 also, he said, if there was any other way that we could make this work, I promise you I would be doing it. But that was just kind of mind blowing to me, because it's one of those moments too where you see a really talented actor in a film, and you just kind of see the power that somebody like that can bring to the screen when it's done well. And it's such a subtle moment, but I'm so glad you guys brought that up, because it's one of my absolute favorite parts of the film, for sure.
Oh, that's awesome.
Such a good moment. Go on. Sorry,
after he tells us about, how he's going to cry, and he wants to be right at the verge of crying, and it's the worst thing he's ever had to, he's being consoled by his wife. It's the worst thing he's ever had to tell these guys, and he can't believe he has to say it. And we're like, yeah, exactly. He goes, and I think that's what's going to make it so funny. And we're all, exactly. Like, he totally got it.
Yeah. No, I think that's dead on also. I mean, I think, again, I keep coming back to this, but I just don't think it works if you don't buy into that character, and if you don't really believe that he cares and that he has reasons for working with the U.S. military, that he's doing all this stuff. And it just comes together. Jen, I feel like I've bogarted most of this conversation so far. I'm sure you've got a million questions. I'd love for you to have a chance here.
Well, this is going to go back to the chemistry between Kris and Ruth Kringle in the movie. I was sitting and watching this movie for the first time with my husband, and we've been married for 10 years. We've been together for 13. And I guarantee you, we've had almost exactly those same kinds of arguments in the kitchen. Like, are those my good towels? Excuse me? And just like the really long-term relationship flirting that goes on and all of that good stuff. And it felt like a very real long-term relationship to me. And I mean, I would love. So first of all, well done. Second of all, how did you do it?
Yeah, I would love to know that. How did you cast Marianne Jean-Baptiste, and how was that relationship with her and Mel, and how did that? I'd love to hear about that for sure.
One thing, first of all, like, Ian, I'm not married at this point, but I am happily dating in a long-term relationship. But Ian's married, so he understands a lot of that vibe. I understand that vibe. I've been in a long-term relationship. And also, like, we looked to our parents for a lot of inspiration. I mean, we've literally seen that conversation between our mom and our dad, witnessed it firsthand in the kitchen. And so we're like, oh, yeah, remember when, like, our mom loves to bake. So it was loosely inspired by some of those interactions with our parents. I think also when we talked to Mel and Marianne about it, they were just like, oh yeah, they're both married. Marianne's married, Mel has been married, and Mel's like, oh yeah, they're an old married couple. We got this. And we would just honestly like cut them loose in the kitchen, and they would be, and for all those scenes, and they'd be throwing little improvs and like slapping each other with the towel. That's not. She slaps him with the towel, not written in the script, but they understand the vibe, right? Like they're throwing lots of little improvisations in there for us. And Ian and I are just like kids in a candy store. We're like, oh, let's just do it again so we can just see what other little nuances they're going to add to this.
Did you guys go through a casting process? Was Mel? I assume Mel was part of that process because he was the first person you brought on, right? Is that true, or did you have other people in mind? Yeah. So was he part of the casting process for Ruth?
I mean, he would run
our ideas by him.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. That relationship just works so well.
Yeah, it's one of the best married relationships on TV. I feel like, or on screen. I feel like most of the time it's just done so poorly and not believable. But we have Santa Claus.
I know. It's just...
and Ruth Kringle having a down-to-earth conversation about towels.
Yeah.
It's fantastic. I never knew I needed this in my life, but now it is.
I think, like I said, like Ash was saying, I think it just came from letting them go, because they would run the scene, and then at the end of it, they would start improvising with each other and goofing around with each other and ribbing each other and giving each other a little bit of shit and like joking with each other and it felt like a real couple. And I mean, I remember, like Ash was saying, that Mel and Marianne were like, oh yeah, we're both married. We've both been married for a long time. Like, this is like, we get this. We know this dynamic. We have it with our spouse, like, yeah, okay, we're going to be able to pick this back up and put it into this. So they did a lot of that. I mean, and Mel and Marianne would come with new stuff every time, which was really fun. And like I said, we kept saying, let's do another one. And they're like, did we get it? Do you guys feel good? We're like, no, we got it. We just want to see what you tag the end with this time.
So, shifting gears a little bit, the primary villain in the movie, played by Walton Goggins, I think he is one of the, I mean, there's aspects of it that are things that I've seen him do before, particularly on Justified and stuff like that. But it's such a unique villain. Was it always kind of written into the script that way, or did he bring a lot to that role that kind of wasn't there initially?
Well, I think Esh froze. Either that or he's very still. Oh, there he is. He's back.
I'm back.
You were still for a minute, man. Still as ice. So we had a lot of the quirky stuff written into the script, but I mean, look, when you cast, every actor you cast would have done something slightly different with it, and we took about half a dozen meetings with people we were really excited about doing the role, and I just remember, every one of them we were excited about for different reasons. We're like, oh yeah, he's going to be great for this little part. Oh yeah, he's going to do a great job with this thing, and oh yeah, it's going to be great to see what he does with this. And then when we sat down with Walton and we went to this diner and within 5 minutes, he's up on his feet, shouting lines from the script, acting like he's aiming a gun at an elf, very intensely in the moment. And everyone's like turning and staring like, what is going on over there?
Pulp Fiction moment that's happening in this diner.
And man, he is dialed and he is in character. And we're just kind of staring at him going, oh my God, this guy's killing it. And I remember he sat down and Esh, I think after the meeting, we both realized at that point, like, he really understood the character really well. He had a lot of cool ideas for how, just the way he was punching lines, you could tell that it was going to be really funny and really dark and creepy and really interesting. Yeah. And we'd seen his work, we're big fans of his work. So we knew that he's pretty mesmerizing on screen, which is what we wanted. I mean, there's an allusion to him being a bit of a snake person in the film. And I mean, I think Walton, embodies that to a certain degree, especially in this film. He's very kind of smooth and slimy, and we wanted him to, like, one of the biggest notes we gave him was he's like, well, what do you guys want out of this character? And we're like, well, the biggest thing we want out of him is that he's unpredictable, because that's probably the most terrifying thing you can think of, is that you don't really know what you're going to get from this guy in each scene from him. And he was like, oh yeah, I love that. And then he just took and ran with it. And I mean, that guy's such a pro. It was literally just like, cut him loose and see what he brings. And then it's just tiny. It's such tiny little, oh, try this, try that, as he goes and just does his thing, because and same with Mel and Marianne. I mean, they're just such talented people. I mean, that's the hardest part, right? Is getting people that are just going to dominate that role, so that you don't have to work too hard, while you're making the movie, that it's just such slight adjustments because they have an understanding, or they do their homework, or they're going to bring such gravitas to that role.
I also think that Walton's like a fountain of suggestions, and there are so many outtakes. Probably a movie in itself. I mean, there's so many different versions. It was so hard because Ian and I ended up editing the film, and it's so hard to pick the best ones, right? And Ian and I were cobbling together like, oh, we love this and that take. But I remember one point he came to us kind of early on. He goes, y'all, could I get a scene in a Chinese restaurant? And we're like, well, yeah, what are you going to be doing in there, you think? And he's like, eating. And we're like, okay. And so, it's like, so he and I went back and like, we were like, okay, Chinese restaurant. And we threw some stuff in there, like the duck, which, for us was a little throwback to Christmas Story and things like that. Yeah. And then we just like let Walton be Walton in there, and let Walton be the skinny man in there. And it was really fun working with him because I wouldn't say he's totally method, but he's always got the skinny man simmering under the surface when he's on set. And so you'd be like, "Hey, Walton, you want a latte or something like that?" And then the skinny man would turn to you and have you talk to you in the skinny man's voice, and you'd be like, and then people, the camera team and everybody just started calling him Skinny. And like, "Hey, Skinny, can you slide over a little bit?" And he loved it. He was totally into it.